spawning in the green, playing as the Delhi Sultanate, excuse me, on the western side of the map. It is I Am Avely, and in the east, playing as the Holy Roman Empire in the color red, it is Baltune. Now, Baltune doing normal HRE things, spreading around the word of their Lord Jesus Christ with that prelate, making sure that all of those villagers get inspired. As you can see here, gathering resource 40% faster for the HRE, kind of a big deal. On the other side, Delhi Sultanate Avely again going for the one chop instead of the two chop, and we did talk about this with Isange going for the one chop as well. So maybe we might see another Tower of Victory coming out of Avely instead of the Dome of the Faith. Now, for all of you frequent AoE 4 watchers, you will know that this matchup is rather historic in its polarization. For a long time, the HRE has been rather effective against the Delhi Sultanate just because of how quickly they can get up to castle, how quickly they can pump out castle age men-at-arms, that the Delhi Sultanate in feudal has trouble dealing with. The only thing the Delhi Sultanate have, although they can do things like Tower of Victory, having that increase in 20% attack speed, and they have some of those scholars in feudal age that could heal, they still are only down to the basic spearman, archer, horseman. That's it. Not until castle age they start getting some special units with those dumbos that we have yet to see. For the Delhi Sultanate in feudal age, having those scholars is what gives them an edge in a lot of those feudal age battles. However, as we can see on Baltune on the other side, they have their own religious units that start in Dark Age. They're not the only one in support of a higher power from second one, as these prelates do have a little bit of, I would say, stronger action in the economic side of things, making sure all of these villagers are working rather quickly, and because of that, Baltune able to go up first before Delhi in that normal build order. Baltune going for the Aachen. And as we can see here, this Aachen placement, rather good. Has these sheep. Going to be able to use it as a drop-off point lumber camp for this wood line here, and has the berries up north. And a lot of times with the HRE, you get to that point in that late feudal, early castle-ish age where you got to be looking for outside food resources if you're not trying to farm transition yet. So that could be a weak point that Avely could try to exploit. Doesn't necessarily get the gold here, but with enough villagers and the fact you only need 600 to go up to castle instead of the 1200 of the food becomes a little bit more important with that Aachen placement, and a rather impressive time for him. A little bit before the 4-minute mark at 3:45, and that Aachen taking its rightful seat in the chapel, equipping himself with that megaphone so he can shout his prayers all along that radius, and all of those villagers getting inspired. Dome of the Faith coming out for Avely on the other side. Now, in Game 1, we did see Isange going with Tower of Victory, taking the fight in feudal. As Avely and the Tower of Victory, you can infer that hanging out in feudal age as the Delhi Sultanate when the HRE is going up to castle, probably not a good move for you. So he goes for the Dome of the Faith. It's instead producing scholars at decreased cost, but a little bit slower. And as we can see, this Dome of the Faith going up at pretty decent timing, hovering around the 430 mark. As you can see, those scholars at 90 gold, but takes 45 seconds to build on the other side. Those scholars being 150 out of a normal Moss, taking only 30 seconds. So you do get a little bit of that production speed time, but having those couple villagers on gold will make it so you're able to get a scholar right out of the gate, and sometimes a second if you have 3 villagers on here instead of 2, but Avely obviously going for 2. Feudal Age military production buildings, again important as Delhi Sultanate, going for a stable and an archery range instead of getting those blacksmiths, which make a lot of sense. You usually don't have the time, especially against an HRE, you really don't have the time to worry about those blacksmith upgrades. And it looks like for how much gold Avely is on, not really worried about getting sacred sites at this point. And Sanctity is going to take a little while. It's going to take a little over 2 minutes. Baltune already has early men-at-arms in the face of Avely trying to take down some of these villagers. Best thing Avely has to combat this, essentially, are horsemen. One, because of the speed. As you can see here, they're able to track down some of these horsemen. And because of how much health they have, Scholar able to heal them a little bit, because those men-at-arms aren't necessarily used as a DPS unit. They're used more as a tanky unit. And that first early men-at-arms is going to go down just because of the speed. Baltune going for more feudal aggression. As you can see, a couple barracks here, has a blacksmith here, adding some houses. Now this looks like, if anybody's played AoE 2 before, this looks like an AoE 2 build, as you're using these buildings as walls. Obviously we know we can't do that, but a rather linear approach to the game, pun very much intended. Coming back to the skirmish here, those men-at-arms just not in a high enough quantity to really out-damage some of these Scholars' healings. It's only 4 early men-at-arms to 4 horsemen. And because they have to retreat, Baltune is bleeding some military units. We saw one early men-at-arms go down, a second one almost going down at about 16 health. But in this fight, those horsemen to men-at-arms largely equal. One thing that I will say is this archery range coming out from Avely yet to make any kind of units. Obviously, Feudal Age Archer is not going to be particularly helpful for him. And Avely is fighting a little bit of the spawn also, the Gaia not being friendly to him, as he's got to use his villagers to back up a little bit. Has 585 gold. What I'm kind of assuming at this point is that he was trying to get the gold he needed to get to 600, not making any more Scholars, trying to get out of Feudal Age as fast as humanly possible, putting all of those on sheep as the berries are going to be going down, and looking at how many villagers he does have on food, which is a whopping 23. 24 now, means he's trying to get to castle as soon as possible. And if he does that, and successfully does that, he will be at a faster castle age than Baltune, because Baltune is going for that feudal aggression. Just using the Aachen Chapel, using the Gaia food resources that are near his base, and just consistently pumping them into men-at-arms instead of going for fast castle. Because there's no blacksmith upgrades on these early men-at-arms, 3 barracks pumping out, that's insane. Because there's no iron undermesh on these early men-at-arms, that town center doing a decent amount of damage, taking its chip shots, and it looks like based on this waypoint, you can see he's scouting all the way around, trying to find where Avely is getting some of those food resources. What's nice for him is those berries just about wrapped up at about 66, but now these sheep, there's a lot of carcasses here, some of them kind of full. Men-at-arms getting a little ballsy, coming up right to these Delhi villagers. Does not get a villager kill. No worker kills for Baltune this game. The only thing he is creating is a decent amount of idle time. One of the things that Avely knew to do rather correctly, get textiles. Again, those early men-at-arms, they're not DPS units, so they're not going to be as efficient at raiding and taking things down. On the flip side, eastern side of Baltune's base, where this gold is, horsemen trying to get some raids. In these fights against the men-at-arms, horsemen, probably going to take a while to kill some of these units. The town center is doing a good job of it anyway. So Avely's like, yeah, forget this. I'm just going all the way around trying to pick off some villagers. Doesn't get any, but maybe a little bit of idle time. And I'm going to flip back to resources per minute. And we see a rather outside compound of the defender for Avely, which is rather interesting. I do see 6 villagers here. He cannot take the boar. That's haram for the Delhi Sultanate. So the boar just immediately dies. So we probably end up trying to take not only these berries, but this gold source here, because that gold source is so forward. He's got to fight that. Baltune scouting around. This is something for, if you're a lower elo player, something to really take note of. Split your units up into a couple different groups, and when you're being aggressive, you got to be thinking, okay, where is my opponent going for resources, and you do your best to not only scout, but try to figure it out at the same time. A lot of these early men-at-arms for Baltune getting caught in that town center. A couple men-at-arms going down in that process. No scholars in this fight. As you can see, not really needed. As and these horsemen don't actually end up going down, but this men-at-arms, this little vanguard force of men-at-arms, getting caught down on the eastern side. More men-at-arms. Avely is scrambling, trying to get some gold going. Can't really find much of anything except for this area. Compound Defender is going up for Castlade, so a little bit of savior from Avely. The issue is, now he's on his last couple sheep carcasses. And based on what's going on here, we have a scout here. We have men-at-arms all the way in the back with a random villager and scholar. Probably, I don't know, getting it on in the back corner. Good for them. These early men-at-arms at all of these different areas on the east side. A couple more horsemen going down for the deli. What is he doing out of this archer range? Starting to pump out the crossbowman. That archer range finally becoming of use as he goes into the castle. Baltune doesn't seem to be slowing down. A little bit of Wololo for these men-at-arms. You got to be quicker than that. Ooh, just in time. Men-at-arms continues to follow a different lord of this scholar, and that scholar, if it doesn't move out in time, it will get struck down by those men-at-arms. Avely on the other side, north sacred site trying to get capture, south sacred site and middle sacred site empty, but that little bit of gold trickle is really going to help him at a time in the game where gold is very difficult to come by. Does get down the first relic as well. Second relic going to be all the way in that back corner. It's going to be difficult for him to get, but a little bit of passive gold income with a relic, with that sacred site. It looks like a men-at-arms already going up there, making sure that sacred site gets decapped. But while it gets decapped, he is going to get a little bit of that gold, so that is going to help him out. And look what Avely has to do with this outside food resource. Delhi has a lot of similar problems that HRE does in that late feudal, early castle era, where you got to be able to find food somewhere. Delhi's farm transition rather difficult compared to some other civilizations. So he's going to go for the deer instead. Pick up that second relic for that little bit of passive gold income. Still about a vanguard force of 5. Early men-at-arms. I don't know if they're looking down here. There's one crossbowman. That one crossbowman to 5 men-at-arms not going to be great for him. Avely on the back foot, it seems, with a lot of his villagers in terms of idle time. So as the compound defender went up, wasn't able to get much in the way of stone because of how difficult it was to get gold, making sure villagers are there. Does spot out this raid. 2 vills going down. And these guys with a movement speed of 1.44 tiles only means that with marching drills they might be a little bit more effective. Now they're at 1.12. Okay, they were doing their sprint before. But raids going down on all different areas. This north area with crossbows and knights coming out for Avely. He has some Castle-Age units. Not sure if he has too much in the way of enough, as this is his only food resource right now, and it is getting consistently bombarded with HRE infantrymen and horsemen alike. Horsemen going to do a really good job of trying to take down these crossbowmen, and we'll get a couple down in the process. Lancer is good against those men-at-arms, maybe not that many, however. Really important to take down the horsemen more so than the men-at-arms. Those crossbowmen have some free shots and going to be able to take them down. But look at all of these red blobs on the mini-map. If here on this eastern front, it's been incredibly difficult for Avely to get any kind of resources. Only 97 gold in the bank, trying to pump out crossbowmen as best he can, trying to get knights out as fast as he can. Scholars, not that many. Does have a little bit of idle time here. You can tell Avely's APM pretty maxed right now because of how much raiding has been going on in his base. On the flip side, I do see Castle-Age Mailmar coming up. Burgrave Palace at about 40%. Avely trying to get a knight raid on this eastern side gold. However, Baltune is safely in this area because of these walls. Having that outside guy food resource in the berry patch. Having this gold vein. And because he's making Burgrave Palace, and I think this is the time Avely will finally scout that Burgrave going up. And that Spearman also taking wind of it. Seeing that Burgrave Palace coming up, meaning that there will be a hell of a lot more HRE units coming in his particular direction. Avely trying to muster up his defenses just a little bit here with this stone. Compound of the defender, only 600 stone keeps. Hopefully he gets 600 soon. Might get a defensive keep and might be able to salvage himself in the economic form by getting village fortresses on those keeps, trying to get some extra vill production. It will take a little bit of time, but we'll see if he actually chooses that technology. Looks like raids on the eastern front of Avely's base have ceased just because of that Burgrave Palace going up. It takes a little bit of time, a lot of resources in order to do that. Baltune with an excellent pull on some of these resources. All these villagers have to go back to the starting town center. Those lancers, just because of the amount of armor they have, they can sit behind under a town center just for a little bit. HRE villagers do not have textiles, so it would be a little difficult. These lancers, however, there is no chop through, so they have to find some way to escape, and actually surprisingly doing that, showing the power of mobility, especially with these early Venom arms, which are yet to have marching drills. Does have iron undermesh, does not have wedge rivets yet. Now it seems like Avely, even though he is at an economic deficit, and you can see with the resources per minute how good that Aachen Chapel is for Baltune, making sure that food is always taken care of. With these farms, he'll be able to pump units out of the Burgrave Palace. I would question a little bit about the Burgrave just because he has 3 barracks already, got map control with those early men-at-arms, so you might think, you know, maybe some Regnant's Cathedral action might be a little bit better, but I understand you really just want to power it on. You want to go all in because of how well you already did. These HRE villagers getting a little feisty, taking hits at those lancers, but now Avely, because of Baltune going up to Castle Age, does have the ability to get a little bit of map control back. This southern sacred site taken, middle sacred site about halfway done, same thing with the northern side. While Avely is trying to get some raids going on back home, doing an excellent job of multitasking and making those HRE units run all the way around the map, trying to get some kills. And you can see the Lancers, they did get some charges, and a villager going down. All of these spearmen just got here. Those Lancers long gone, my friend. They're in a different zip code. It's a little bit of that mobility coming to Avely's advantage. And I think the score gap a little bit narrow. And I said something about a defensive keep before. However, defensive, this is not going to be. We have 10 villagers coming in, dropping a face keep. And I know sometimes when I talk about face keeps, if it's not that aggressive, I'll be like, it's a neck keep. You know, it's maybe like a shoulder keep, something like that. Nah. This is right in the mid wood line, right in the face of Baltune. And now he's going to have to pick a different wood line, which is really nice for Baltune. He has this back wood line and lumber camp already there, so knows he can go there for a little bit of safety. And I think Avely might have enough units to make this happen. A little bit of delay with the Wololo. Fantastic strategy that guarantees you at least 6 seconds of time so those villagers can get that keep up. And I think they will be able to get that in time. That Scholar holding on for dear life. Herbal Medicine must be gotten by Avely because it's able to heal so well. They have a bad line to get to these villagers. And again, with a lot of these men-at-arms that are here, a lot of spearmen, going to be rather difficult for him. Keep goes up. 10 villagers garrison. A lot of these units, the horsemen and the spearmen, are going to be taken down by keeps rather effectively. So even though Avely gets mopped up here, and we see all of those crossbowmen, we see the Scholars end up going down, the Knights going down by how many spearmen. Does add men-at-arms, which is a fantastic army composition choice, because with the horsemen and spearmen coming out from Baltune, the men-at-arms could really be able to shred and get some good tankiness and good synergistic effect with the Scholars that are going to be able to heal. Baltune is going all in on this keep, trying to take it down. Keep at about half strength, going to get the Springald upgrade in about 3 seconds. So we'll be able to have some increased damage here. Again, all 3 sacred sites for Avely. Sacred victory, 8 minutes, 30 seconds. He's losing a lot of his units here, trying to take down this keep. Only thing for Avely, though, he does not have any stone in the bank. It doesn't look like he is trying to get any anytime soon. So this means that if he wants to repair this keep, he's not going to be able to, but I believe he bought some from the market because I saw a bit of that go up, so he's going to try to get that. trying to get that to build up as best he can. A lot of villagers are going to go down because of this thing, though. Military count stabilized. 24 to 21, 25 to 21, excuse me, those villagers in a nice enshrinement of death, and that face keep becomes no more. But you got to think about now what it did for him. He was able to get all three sacred sites behind him that have since been decapped. So he got a little bit of gold generation that way. Able to pick up all 5 relics on the map. So now, hindsight 2020, kind of a good thing Burgrave exists here. Regnitz Cathedral would just be a fancy looking building. And it looks like a little bit of a Horseman Raven Baltune coming in on the south end of Avely's base. Now, every villager that Avely loses, because of the fact he only has 1 town center, because of the fact Village Fortresses has not been completed, every villager that he loses is going to be huge because there's only 1 town center that could be making units for him. And it looks like Avely's trying to establish a little bit of a defensive here. His south side army composed of just about 1-to-1 ratio of men-at-arms and crossbowmen and a couple knights on the front end. I think if that crossbowman mass is able to do some damage on these back-end men-at-arms, it does do a good job against spearmen as well, would be useful. But both of these armies just passing by each other until Baltune does see Avely on this eastern side. I think he knows that this could be a good fight for him if he chooses to take it. And it looks like he's going for more of a containment strategy over here on this side. The one thing about these 2 bases that I will comment on before this fight gets underway, but I don't have time. Looks like Horseman trying to get a good hit on some of these crossbowmen. 1 crossbow going down. This is going to be really difficult to deal with some of these men-at-arms. There are land snakes behind, which is going to be good for his army as well with a lot of men-at-arms. Avely is trying not to take this fight as best as he can, trying to get some horseman raids on the south side. He is bleeding units because he's not taking this fight. And you could argue that if he ended up taking that fight, he would have lost units anyway because there were no scholars there. Now that scholars are there in this fight with these AoE units like the land snakes, it's going to be very difficult for those scholars to heal everybody at the exact same time. As far as Baltune, no prelates here, no inspired warriors. There's a lot of healing being done on those men-at-arms, not a lot of tanky or DPS units in Baltune's army composition, and because of that, this looks like to be a little bit of a, well, I was going to say cleanup for Avely, but I feel like both players lost a decent amount of units in the process. But those men-at-arms being so crucial for him. He's continuing with this army comp of Landsake, Spearman, Horseman, and only adding a couple men-at-arms in his own army composition. But Baltune a little bit quicker to reload here. There's a decent amount of units, probably somewhere else that I'm thinking for Avely. However, because of these scholars, might be a little bit of extra units for him. And let's see how tanky these men-at-arms can be now that Baltune has added a couple of his own and adding knights. Good change in the army composition. And with that reload for Baltune being quicker than Avely, that army ends up getting wrapped up and cleaned up for Baltune, and that would be considered, in my book, a victory for the Holy Roman Empire. Avely trying to focus on sacred sites as much as he can. It's been rather difficult for him. Look at all these units back home. That would have been really, really helpful in that fight. Trying to focus on those sacred sites. Had some issues with map control, however. It seemed like he did a good job when Baltune was matriculating up to Castle Age to get some of that map control. Now Avely kind of on the struggle bus. So difficult to get some of those sacred sites, but having the 5 relics back home is going to be really helpful. And we take a look at how many villagers he has on gold. It is a whopping 0. So having that little bit of a deficit in terms of economic count, the relics are kind of evening out for him. Avely going for a keep on this northern sacred site. It will go up just because there's only 1 horseman here. And while he's trying to get some knights over here, I don't know what happened. Is there a hole over here in the middle? There's a hole maybe here. And those lancers were able to get in there, trying to take down some of this food. Baltune's army composition is very food intensive. He does have a lot of spearmen, but horsemen take a lot. Those men-at-arms, those knights take a lot. But now, Baltune thinks that he's at a military advantage, and I believe that he has guessed correctly. And he is sending all of his units right into Avely's north side of his base. There's not a lot of military here for Avely that's going to be able to defend against this. These villagers have to get into the town center as quick as they can. Scholars going down, giving themselves their last rites. And with this big battle coming in right in the middle of Avely's base, I don't think that defensive town center is going to be enough to save him. Horsemen getting a circle around these crossbowmen, which is huge. There's a mango in the abyss hiding betwixt the houses, but going down as quickly as it was built. And Avely's military strength going down to single digits. On the flip side, a quick peek at Baltune's base, Palace of Swabia going up. That 75 is going to turn into 125 real quick if you blink too many times. And because HRE able to get to the Imperial Age, this could be the end for Avely dealing with a lot of these units that will become elite eventually. And this is usually a signal in this matchup when you see that Imperial Age come in. You're thinking, well, it's going to be really difficult for the Delhi Sultanate to go up against some Imperial Age because he knows he is nowhere near it, and the fact that Delhi doesn't really have an Imperial Age right now. I don't even know what the landmarks are at this point. Who cares? Because you don't see them, right? Trying to get a defensive keep in his own base. All his production on the eastern side is not only unwalled but forward. So we'll have to redo a lot of this. He does have a safe haven and a couple barracks over here with these farms. Village fortresses, again, not being completed quite yet. Not going to be able to compete with that Swabia, and that will continue to pump villagers endlessly. For Baltune, I would imagine all of these barracks pumping out. Burgrave actually not doing anything, surprisingly. But a siege workshop for Baltune, hopefully to add some siege, take some buildings down. And now Baltune, instead of throwing his army in completely against the Delhi, which one could argue could have some benefit in having a lot of idle time and all that kind of stuff, he knows that he's Imperial. He can get his upgrades, he can take his time, and once he actually gets there and does have that mass, it'll be quite the unstoppable force. Avely trying to get some raids in again. Over here on the south side, taking down a horseman, but there's one or two spearmen here that will mop it up eventually. That north sacred site still taken from Avely, getting that little bit of gold production. And as you can see here, just first gold villagers in the Castle Age going in for Avely. He does have a lot of gold, getting a market and getting some of that food, because it looks like he's kind of food locked at this stage. Might be able to help him in this department, but Baltune getting some economic upgrades with economic count at 96 to 62. He knows that now he's in a quite commanding lead. Gonna establish a forward keep. See this? We talked about face keep. This is a face keep. This is like a, I don't know, shoulder brachial keep, maybe. So still forward, still up there, but not in the face. But it will establish a nice little foothold. Avely trying to get some siege going here with a couple mangonels, and that could really help him in this fight. Baltune doesn't have much in the way of range mass. However, with a lot of these infantry units, these men-at-arms, these spearmen, could be rather susceptible to a mangonel. Lancers getting in that cheeky chop through, trying to take down some villagers. The issue is Baltune being Imperial Age as the HRE, having Palace of Swabia. These villagers are going to go down. He's going to make another one in 6 seconds. So unless you have a very commanding raid with like dozens of villagers going down, it's going to be difficult for your raids to make an impact. And you can see Baltune's economy at about 1,800 food per minute, almost double that of Avely's. All he needs to do is essentially pop cap himself. Avely on the other side in Castle Age, pumping out as many units as he possibly can, along with pumping out as many scholars as he can. Dome of the Faith is the only thing producing scholars. These mosques do have a decent amount of gold. These mosques could be producing scholars. They're done with their research projects, so you could be able to do that. One Springald for Avely, but no siege yet for Baltune. As soon as I say that, the first chunky bombard comes out and it's going to be rolling its way over to the front side, trying to take down some of these buildings. Avely looks like he does want to take this fight, however. Does see the HRE outpost just getting completed. Does see an HRE keep there. Can't take a fight under that. All of these units still Castle Age for Baltune. Did not get the upgrades. Just went for more so of a mass. And did mass more than Avely. Military count 74 to 56 as this fight starts to get underway. This keep in the back really helping him out. Making sure he's getting a lot of that fire against a lot of these Castle Age units. Now with village fortresses getting completed, as we see here it getting there, maybe we'll see some economic production if this game doesn't end sooner rather than later. Now he still wants to take this fight behind this keep, which, you know, might be okay for him. The issue is because of all these houses, it's very difficult for these melee units to get a good front. So they're able to get picked off by all this range in the back. I get that these are only feudal age archers, but they're going to be doing very well against some of these spearmen. These melee units have such a tricky time going into these little alleyways, these dark alleyways, to try and get on those ranged units. Avely now has villagers kind of spread out all over the place. Adds a keep here, which the HRE Bombard has something he wants to talk to it about. So it'll be trying to get that up, trying to get a little bit of a stability of a wood economy and an outpost out here. They're really trying to take down each other's economies here, which I can absolutely respect. A couple trebs from Avely over here on the west side. Looks like one that is completely packed, two that are unpacked, trying to take down some of these outposts, making sure that Baltune doesn't get a little bit of extra vision. 4 trebuchets now in total, as you can see with the screen having 8 there, but I can assure you it's 4 and a 5th coming out. So this is going to be effective against Baltune just because of the lack of anti-siege that Baltune has. This forward keep, along with the town center, which, as we know, does spread the emergency repairs ability. This keep will be able to emergency repair if need be, and it looks like that need be will be sooner rather than later. If all of these trebs can get onto this keep, it probably could out DPS the emergency repairs. And I think that's what Avely is intending to do. And this keep now at about 40% health will continue to get repaired, but probably not enough. That cannonball was the shot heard around the world as this battle starts. Because of it, Springald trying to get shots at the Bombard doesn't get there. This is a big fight under no kind of natural defenses for either player. Cannon trying to take shots at Trebs, trying to take this keep alive. Scholars trying to heal this front line. There's a lot of Castle Age men-at-arms here. Archers upgraded to veterans, so a lot of these spearmen, a lot of these land snakes end up going down here. What do we see on this military count? It's 60 to 45. Baltune's army starting to go down a little bit. Elite men-at-arms with their maces are out, trying to get some damage on these men-at-arms, but maybe that scholar healing was a little too much. Maybe this crossbowman mass in the back with these archers was a little too much, and Baltune with these elite units has to back up against the Delhi Sultanate. Military count 62 to 32 in favor of Avely. The fact that he's able to hold this and take this battle is incredible. His elite men-at-arms being kind of the DPS unit for him, for these Castle Age men-at-arms, which you would think on paper would completely shred these Castle Age men-at-arms, but they seem to be holding a front line. And as soon as I say that, I decide to break just a little bit, and Baltune's mass kind of gaining a little bit of ground here. These horsemen, even though they're elite horsemen and they have a decent amount of damage, don't do that great against these men-at-arms. And I think these men-at-arms are tanky enough with the scholars giving them enough time to take down the elite men-at-arms of Baltune. Finally, we see some horsemen on these trebs with their little siege bonus, trying to take down these trebuchets. This keep did go down. So the job of the Trebs is completed, but at the cost of 5 Trebs at about 2,500 wood. That's a lot for a keep and trying to establish some of that. These men-at-arms, because we have mostly archers here, and the fact they only have 9 damage, only hitting those elite men-at-arms for 2, needing 90 shots, trying to get that bombard, not getting there. Now it looks like Avely really desperately needs some crossbows. That first fight that he had was really good when he had an archer and a crossbow mass, because there were spearmen in there, and there were men-at-arms, so it gives you the ability to, if you needed to micro, you can have them on individual groups depending on how good your APM is. Mine is not, so I don't do that. But for Avely having the archers with the bonus damage and spearmen, crossbowmen with the bonus damage for the men-at-arms, it made that front line rather flimsy for Baltune, even though they were elite units. Now, out of these siege workshops here, for Avely on the eastern front of his base, that's a face keep. That's a face keep. Oh, I gotta see this thing go up. Now, Bombard's behind with a little bit of siege support, but the Springald's gonna be able to take some shots here. I don't know if there were enough crossbowmen in this. It looks like about 13 total in terms of population. However, Horsemen gonna be able to get to these Springalds. Only 1 Springald staying. 2 Bombards end up going down, so siege advantage in favor of Avely at this point in time. Now with this fight, this archer ball. Look at how quickly those men-at-arms end up going down, but for Baltune, that was all about buying time, baby. He might have lost that fight rather convincingly, obviously, with a military count of 55 to 19. However, did get this keep up. And this will mean that this mass has to back all the way up, this keep establishing a new front for him, making Avely make more Trebs, which are so wood intensive. I don't think there's an emergency repairs that is going to save this keep if it does end up getting weak. But Baltune starting to remass. Look at that economic count while that big battle was going on. 130 to 102, and there's a reason why. Using village fortresses, making sure you're getting that late game economic power that Baltune has had for a while. The issue is I haven't really seen it translate. Maybe we need an army composition switch from Baltune. Not really quite sure. Maybe we need to add a couple mangonels in the mix here. This is a huge archer mass. A couple mangonels might do you good, going for the more expensive bombards instead. And this archer and crossbow mass, even though these are elite units, kind of a meat grinder. But now we see some lance tanks coming in. The infantry version of a mangonel, essentially, trying to get some good hits. And some crossbowmen, some archers go down, but these archers, man, they're doing their 300 stand. And Baltune is trickling units in only for them to meet their demise. Baltune does have a decent amount of stone trying to repair this keep. Again, emergency repair is not there for him, so has to repair it the old-fashioned way. And now with insufficient stone, does not have the ability to do that anymore. And I'm thinking maybe this keep ends up going down. You know, you have so many Trebs here. You've got 5 Trebs here with no ability to repair now. I don't think you're going to be able to rebuild some of this to the point where I'm not really sure why he's trying at this point. This is going to take a little bit of time. And it will finally go down. Now another fight coming right at you. Adding some spears, Avely did, trying to get this horseman mass killed, but it doesn't look like there's too many horsemen in this fight for Baltune, more so in the men-at-arms category. A lot of crossbowmen here for Avely, trying to get some good shots, and military count, though, is dwindling. That archery mass, no more, just more like a small conglomerate. Military count favor of Baltune, 37 to 16, and now these Trebs have nowhere to go. Those back alleyways becoming a detriment to those trebuchets just because of how big they are. And look at all this kindling. You can start a fire to make that burning oil, that kind of kindling. But now Avely's military count largely problematic here. I know he's moved a lot of his military production, as you can see all the way up here, But if this keep goes down, this could be really the last stand for Avely. This keep panned out to be incredibly cost-effective. At how many units it ends up killing, at how much map control he was able to get, the fact that the boiling oil is on it. But now we've changed the siege superiority once again. Avely's trying to counteract that with a couple of springles. Issue is, doesn't have much of a front line in order to back it up, trying to take hits on that bombard. These springles are a lot of wasted resources. They end up going down. One thing I will mention, Avely, just because he feels like his back is against the wall consistently, not much in the raids. There's an ability to raid here. There's some pockets, you know, some out-choppings that could make it a little difficult. Looks like back here on this eastern front that we haven't seen in some time, Baltune trying to get a keep on this wood source. But does have a treb here, which is a lot of wood in order to get down. Baltune sees that with his bunch of villagers, and we will have a peasant fight there eventually. But as we go to the front line for the HRE, this is what makes the HRE good in the siege capacity, especially against the Castellated Delhi. Castellated Delhi has springholds that you cannot upgrade. Baltune has a nice, shiny culverin doing that plus 100 against siege, making those springholds pop like a bubble. This peasant fight is continuing to ensue as we have a little ceasefire in the north. We might as well take a look at it. These peasants trying to fight for their lives. Swordsmen getting, or horsemen getting into the fight. Get out of here. This is a peasant fight. HRE ends up taking it. Also, HRE on the other side, you can see their ability to stockpile resources. Avely, not so much, but now with that economy up to 115, you gotta give him credit for how well he was able to hang on throughout this battle and throughout this, essentially throughout this game, because we knew he was at an advantage. You know, we knew for the Delhi Sultanate there was that window in order for him to get some sort of cataclysmic advantage, and it did not pan out for Avely. Now on the flip side, with that anti-siege superiority with the culverins, it's going to be rather difficult for Avely to muster up enough anti-siege of his own to combat that, just because of culverin range, just because of culverin health compared to the springolds at 125. It takes 3 springolds to take down a culverin. It only takes 1 culverin to take down a springold. It looks like Baltune's queuing up a second one just to make sure his bombards are safe. And just having 2 of them could be enough. Now, with these 2, they're not going to be able to one-tap the spearmen. But he didn't back up the bombard. That's a huge amount of resources. Luckily, he does have the economy to make sure he can make another one, and he'll be okay with it. But that does delay his push a little bit. Avely on this east side. Hopefully, I'd like to say listening to my advice. Trying to get some horseman raids over here. There are a decent amount of chops. We see a university here trying to get some research, but on the campus grounds, there's evil afoot. And a lot of these horsemen trying to just create a little bit of idle time in the process. And here we have it, our very first Dumbo sighting. That Dumbo will be in the forefront of this battle. Horsemen trying to get around these crossbowmen. Now this could be the battle that decides it if Baltune has a convincing victory. However, with a couple of these big bad Dumbos, it's going to be rather difficult for horsemen to get any kind of surround on the archer mass. And they could really tank up a lot of damage at 1400. If he has the scholars to heal them, he would be able to do so. The issue is because Avely has been on his back foot consistently through the entirety of this game, and because it's been rather difficult, he only has that little bit of gold left and that tower doing damage on it. That gold income really relying on just the relics and just the sacred sites that he was able to periodically capture. Springhold's going to be able to take that bombard. We do have this culverin shooting a half quarter on that Springhold, and it does end up going down. But look how healthy these elephants actually are in this fight. They're really able to hold their own here, and not much damage, if any damage. I don't think these even been targeted yet. And now in all of that, in this Delhi battle, as far as frontline goes, only the Dumbos remain, as it took a Culverin hit in the ass. Baltune seems to be having a decent amount of trouble trying to end this game. Have some nice little sharing of resources, which is nice. This is what I like Baltune doing. He's capturing the sacred sites because of how much map control he has. Look at Avely having to wall this. All up here, wall this south side all the way down here. Once this gold runs out, I don't know what he's going to do for gold. Because of how much Baltune has over this map, he does have a couple gold veins left. Issue is, with these trading posts, it's going to be difficult for him to venture out to the map to trade if he wanted to. And keep in mind, Avely has stayed in Castle Age for essentially the duration of this game, and this horseman trying to take down that Trev just a little bit, and does get it. Delhi horseman coming over here on the south side, making sure that wood is Delhi wood alone. South sacred site getting captured. I'm sure the north one does get captured eventually. Now that we have all of these bombard towers, keeps Culverins, you're hearing the shots of gunpowder all over this Delhi area. He has to keep backing up and backing up, and now that we can take a look at some of Avely's base here in his starting town center, being right here in the middle, almost in range, that Dome of the Faith in the back, that compounded defender, not easily defended, but when you're pulling your army, Dumbo's included, making sure that compounded defender stays alive, and we will take a fight here on the south side. Avely actually cleaning some of these Vanguard forces up. Most of these forces are all the way in the back here, not being able to take this fight, and we have some villagers in the back here as well. So Avely's able to take some of these favorable fights, which vehemently extends the game. Now with these elite spearmen, for how much they do to cavalry with 28 plus, spearmen getting us surrounded on these war elephants could be really important, and there's a lot of knights coming in for Avely on this battle. But again, those war elephants, oh my god, the DPS and their ability to tank so many hits, even from what looks like spearmen, and they don't even have scholars behind, just sticking around. They're just hanging out the entirety of this battle, taking some spear shots, but now that they're able to get encircled, now that these spearmen are able to get a good wrap around, we're going to see these war elephants finally go down. And if you're the HRE, don't forget to harvest that ivory if you're going to kill Dumbos like that. Now Avely has to back up over on this western side, continue to force out more units. Something Baltune might even want to keep in mind is you could try to get a snipe going on some of these landmarks. I mean, I know Compounded Defender is a little out there, but you know, you're not at a completely unreasonable position to do that. Also in the top side here, Baltune going for his markets. Going to start cranking out that trade whenever he is able to. Did a good job of gathering gold throughout the map. Some idols coming on over here, but doing a good job of getting the gold around the map. But is going to have issues when that gold runs out. And this Delhi gold not only is just about to run out, but everybody who is mining that gold is dead. A lot of worker kills, as we can see on the bottom part of the screen. 143, 45 in favor of Baltune, 58 for Avely throughout this battle. Man, these crossbowmen, they aren't touching these horsemen. Look at how many crossbowmen they have for how much it actually takes a horseman out. It's unbelievable. As we're going into our 49th minute, Baltune trying to get a little aggressive, trying to go for some of these raids, trying to take out some of these villagers. And based on the raids that happen in the south side where this gold mine is, and in the north, economic count 130 to 87 in favor of Baltune. So he's going to be able to ride that, and you can see just based on the stockpile of resources that he has, and it's almost like delaying the inevitable. And now in the north, that sacred site's going to finally get captured. And I really don't have an idea for Avely to crawl his way out of this turtle shell that he didn't have a choice but to put himself in. And it looks like now he's come up with an idea. that I have not previously, and that's getting a metric crap ton of horsemen and probably going for some kind of landmark snipe. Now, it will be a little bit difficult just because of the walls that are here. No chop through here. It doesn't look like there's a chop through north. Like in the south, they're trying to extend, trying to get a little bit of a surface for him, but Baltune re-walling over here on the back end. And as you can see, we have Swabia here as he's massing all of these. Swabia here, hometown center, Aachen, Burgrave. So a little bit spread out. It'll be a little difficult for him to do, but now military count 112 in favor of Avely. 68 horsemen and 4 knights, and they're continuing to just get pushed out because he knows that this game is essentially over otherwise. There's been a lot of villager kills here. We've got a raid down here in the south. Avely's okay with this because that means more horsemen. So he's doing the best he can. I think he's one of the things that you can look out for if you're expecting something like a horseman raid to happen is if your opponent takes a fight that doesn't look to be very advantageous for them, as Avely is doing, and losing a lot of these crossbowmen and archers. Well, I'll tell you what, these crossbowmen and archers, how much damage they do to buildings is a whopping 1. So he don't care about this at all. Horseman raids, these are more villagers going down for horsemen. He don't give a damn. And I think he's going to attempt to try to pop cap himself. Now, I'm not sure how many stables he has. Now that he has this in the back corner, though, are some of these raiding horsemen going to spot out what's happening? And it seems like, as of right now, they're not. A lot of villagers over here on this middle woodside does have some siege here methodically. Slowly. There's been so many culverin shots at this keep. Avely's letting these villagers die. Should be suspicious for Baltune. Now, I know Avely's trying to pop cap himself in favor of horsemen. However, with that sacred site victory approaching at about the 7-minute 30 mark, doesn't want to cut it too close. And of course, I'm obviously being incredibly optimistic. If that actually worked. Walling up this compounded defender, making sure that it doesn't get sniped down. However, he might see these horsemen coming down here on the south side. Look at all this south. I don't know if they'll be able to pick him up. And if he does damage to them, it could alert him. But it looks like just based on the way that Baltune backed up, that he knows that that shit is coming. So now Baltune, he can go for one of two things. He can try to get these landmarks down as quick as possible, or he can try to go back home. Oh my gosh. Looks like he's trying to delete all of these farms. You can hear that sound all the way in the back, because what's he going to try to do? Put stone walls, as we can see, all the way in the back, and we'll see if they actually get there in time, and they actually get built in time. These walls are going to be taken down borderline immediately. All of these palisades end up going down. He's getting pretty much all of his villagers to build these stone walls, making sure that there is not any kind of hole. Going to go for the Aachen Chapel first, which might buy him a little bit of time here. But with the HRE, as we can see right here with this little hammer, having the emergency repairs becomes very important. Baltune did have to pull all the spearmen back, did have to pull all his horsemen back. Wasn't early enough to get to these stone walls, but got to the Aachen Chapel first and had to emergency repair that. Now, I think that was more of a bait for Avely, because he went to this hometown center. Now he doesn't have emergency repairs in this area at all. However, because of the military count, we can watch this military count dwindle incredibly quickly. A lot of repairs going on this Burgrave Palace, and it looks like those horsemen aren't even attacking the Burgrave. And then back end here, of course, all of these horsemen going down. But on the flip side, I know, I did see that on the minimap of the Swabia going down. So did get halfway there with 120-ish horsemen. To be honest, this was probably one of the most, and I know we can both see that Avely was behind for a decent amount of this game. It was a whopping 54-minute game. However, his ability to persevere as the Delhi Sultan and maintain some kind of footholding in this game is rather impressive. But even though it is impressive, Baltune does get the victory at a 1-0. Again, this is the best of 3. We're in the semifinals. A game on Lipany, spawning in the southeast. Now remember, this is Road to Wall, low Lipany, so the map spawns are a little bit better. But spawning in the southeast, playing as China, is Avely, and playing in the northeast, or the northwest, excuse me, playing as the English, and currently at a 1-0 lead in this series. It is Baltune. These civs, again, rather doozies in terms of late game prowess. China, one could argue, is more of a Castle Age civ, and to which I would agree with you because of the power spike that they have. English against China, if you don't do anything like feudal age aggression, and if you're able to survive the first 35 minutes, you essentially just win the game because of the enclosures and the constant infinite stream of resources that you have. But maybe this might be more of an aggressive approach between two players just because of a little bit of recency bias. We just came off of an almost 1-hour game. I don't know if these players want to do that again. I would be amazed if they electively was like, hey, let's do another one of these. But Avely, a little bit of a micro issue. Scout's not coming back with some of the sheep that it has, so going to go for the berries instead. Delay that feudal age time just a little bit because of berry gathering rate, but that's okay. On the other side, Baltune going for a more, I know back in Season 2 and like earlier Season 3, English was 2 different builds that were popular, more of an aggressive feudal age build, more of a 2-2-2 build with 2 on wood, 2 on gold, 2 on food. At the start of the game, the 2-2-2 is largely, it seems like it's dissipated from the meta from what I've seen, because you're still able to get to that Castle Age time if you would like to. And a lot of English players in feudal age like to try to get that second town center if they can. But Baltune going to be hitting that age up button first, going with the council hall as all good Englishmen do. And it looks like on the back end, Avely is making his transition from these berries back to sheep. It will be going up again. That little bit of delay. Now, because there could be that little bit of delay in Avely, will we see Baltune try to strike? There is a typical thing for Dark Age, for the English going for Vanguard men-at-arms and trying to get a little bit of damage in idle time. For China, and initially I would think that China, it might be pretty good because they're going outside for their mill, going outside for their gold. It might be a lot of raidable areas, but getting into that town center range with those hand cannoneer slits only takes about 4 hits to get one of those Vanguard men-at-arms to go down, so not as beneficial. Going for more of a feudal age barracks with his council hall. While as Avely on the flip side, going for Imperial Academy right next to his mill, and will eventually end up getting his production buildings there, of course. So as this game kind of materializes and gets to feudal age, let's take a look at some hot spots on both these players' spawns. So obviously we have these sheep and berries a little bit on the south. We have 2 deer patches that spawned rather close to each other, with another berry patch and a wood line that could provide a little bit of defensibility. If Avely did want to go for a second town center, I would think that's where you would want to have that second town center, or a lot of Chinese players will put their town center, their secondary town center, right next to their main one, which is fine, of course, as well. there's that hand cannoneer slot, as I mentioned a little bit previously. With that Imperial Academy, is actually going to put a Barbican here instead, which adds a lot of defensive prowess to this area because of how small the area is. Make sure that any kind of raids will be damaged while going there if he chooses not to wall. It does go up at about the 5-minute mark, and it looks like maybe at about the 5:45-ish you might see it, but the first military units for Baltune are making their way across that side of the map here, and the Barbican is only at about 60% in a rather indefensible area because it's not completed yet. Avely does not have any units whatsoever on the map. Scout went down prior. So now he's going to have a lot of villagers here trying to get that Barbican. It does go up. Longbowman does go down in the making, but a couple are able to skirt by. This Longbowman is going to be especially annoying for Avely because Baltune can just sit and take pot shots at these villagers without being in the range of essentially anything. On the bright side, now that Barbican's completed, this wood line is going to be pretty safe for Avely to chop if he wants to. And just like we said before, keep getting hit over and over again. It's only 6 damage, but that little bit of idle time, super annoying. 60 tacks left in this mill that's going to be difficult to actually pick up. And now he has to work his way around, going to the western side of the Barbican, putting that mill down, and going to get some of these deer. Now, again, this Barbican can only house 8. So if something happens, like a decent amount of military units come in here, we could see an issue. There's Longbowman trying to get there. Barbican not going to let him, and I think that's within range, and he will get that hand cannon to the back of the head. On the flip side, Baltune is going for a second town center. Does have a cheeky mining camp that can get both. That little bit of extra walking time, it's alright. Just straightening out that macro a little bit at 358, just hitting that 400 immediately. Ugh. That is some amazing macro determination. Second town center going on this deer patch. And English actually doing a good job of taking map control, which is not something that I thought I would say when I woke up this morning. But having the ability to extend a little bit farther just because of those little bit of longbowmen and a little bit of spearmen that were made. Because for China, it takes a little longer for them to get their economy up and running and then start producing out of those just because of the time it takes to get to Song Dynasty. Because he is Song Dynasty, although he does have a couple archers here, did use the rest of his gold that he had to get Zugnu. Arguably, some will argue with me by saying this, but I think they're the best feudal age archer. I think they beat the longbowmen, my personal opinion. But the one thing about the longbowmen that are going to make me eat my words is the range. How they can take down that IO, be out of the range of that Barbican, and take down an archer. And it looks like this woodline not as protected as he might thought. Avely gonna have to vacate that woodline a little bit to the western side. The IO getting a little, oh man, that IO getting a little too greedy trying to pick up that tax. It does end up going down. Has to queue another one. And I know with one IO going down, you might think, well, it's one unit, not that big of a deal. 150 resources and the economic bonuses that you get from that IO is insane. I think Baltune is, just based on how many units he's making, he was producing some longbowmen and continuing to queue some. Not that much in the way of spearmen just because no horsemen are coming out from Avely, and I don't see a stable out here as well. Could mean that Baltune is smelling some blood in the water, might go for a little more feudal aggression than previously anticipated. Does have a huge food per minute just because of the deer patch that he has here. And actually hasn't gotten any farms. Baltune is putting most of his wood into these Council Hall longbowmen and had a little bit of that extra wood to make a blacksmith to get some of that ranged damage upgrade. And what's most important when you're playing against Chuganu, just because they only do 4 and 3 burst attack, having that +1 ranged armor is essentially like getting +3 on them, because that ranged armor is obviously going to be very important. Avely is going up with the second town center with Song Dynasty, so even though the economic count right now is 39 to 36, I'd say give it about 3 minutes, and you're going to be astounded at how well the Song Dynasty is able to pump out units, even though it was previously nerfed on the timing. But Baltune trying to get some fill kills, trying to get a little aggressive with these longbowmen. The hand cannon slits only can hit 1 unit at a time, with only 1 IO garrison in it, so did get a couple worker kills. Worker kills the count of 3 to 0 in favor of Baltune, and that means economic advantage only +1 in favor of Avely. Avely wanting to go for the late game, being the Song Dynasty and having that second town center, wanting to pump out as many economic units as he possibly can within this, 6 to 7 minute mark of when that town center is quote unquote supposed to pay off. For Song Dynasty, it's a little bit quicker than that, obviously, but and then bolstering his military production. So for him, he's just trying to hold on. I think Baltune notices that and was continuing to make units with military count 21 to 14 in favor of Avely. And Baltune making a switch into men-at-arms. I love this change. Especially against having things like archers and Zugnu that have not been upgraded yet. Blacksmith just starting to go underway. For Avely, the spearman, not going to do anything for you. No horsemen here. Baltune knows that, makes an army composition change because of it. And now, English just doing English things. Another outpost, and a rather aggressive outpost coming up now. Not only for the English outpost, obviously network of castles, you're getting the increase in attack speed, and a lot of people, they're talking about network castles, all that, but you got to think about the vision too that this is going to get. And now we have our first real battle underway. We have some Zugnu, that ranged armor coming in just in time. The spearman eating some shots. Longbowman, because of the range, able to snipe the Zugnu out before the Zugnu can actually get range. And look at how much damage they're doing to these early men-at-arms. Essentially, pellets. That hand cannoneer, the Barbican of Sun, is the only thing that's really producing damage out of these men-at-arms. And because of that, military count 26 to 10. Any fight that Baltune wants to take out of these Zugnu really does not have the mass to counteract it. So these longbowmen can sit and pick off these one by one. Has an outpost here to get that extra attack speed. This is textbook English aggressive play in field. Now look at military counts. 26 to 2. Avely is trying as best he can to get as many Zugnu, and does have the economy to do so, trying to get maybe a little bit more gold here. I'm not sure where he's getting it from. If I can take a look on this map, but is getting a little bit in the form of taxes, trying to get as many Zugnu with 2 archery range. The issue is you're up against the Council Hall. They are pumping out these longbowmen at 7 seconds. You are pumping out Zugnu at 15. So they get 5 longbowmen to your 4 Zugnu. And if you continue going at that rate, it's going to be rather difficult for you to catch up, to the point where you will have an inability to do so. More men-at-arms coming out for Baltune, going to be trying to get that wall. And I know that Baltune is going for more of an aggressive strategy, because you can see it on the top left corner, but I'll click on the blacksmith for you. Siege engineering coming out for these guys. Doing good for food economy, knows he's got map control, trying to get some more wood. Also, a little cheeky early men-at-arms raid, getting a worker kill. Surprisingly enough, because of that second town center from Baltune, it's really sheltering him from the 2 TC Song onslaught of economic units. Yes, the worker kills help, of course. But now Avely making an army composition change, going in the favor of horsemen, and obviously, this is a pretty good call. Looks like there's a... The villager seemed to have lost its way a little bit. Looks like he's trying to wall, maybe prohibiting some trade or something like that, but that villager did meet its end to the bitey infantry. Now that he saw some of these horsemen coming up on the south side, it means this Barbican largely undefended. 1 ram is there, not much DPS for only 1 ram. But Avely did move a lot of his economic units back up. It has this wood patch. This is very safe. And has this berry patch here going back to the gold mine. Now my issue is for Avely is all of this food, this little bit of this deer that's left, these berries, it's so forward in front of this English area. Horsemen in the back trying to get some kind of raids going, trying to pick off the reinforcements, which we know, playing against English, they're trickling units out one by one going all the way across the map. Can't move that council hall. So you're able to pick off some of the reinforcements, which is what Avely's trying to do with about 6 horsemen. But rather unlucky coming out against a couple spearmen. And I think for Baltune, how many men-at-arms he has, don't really think he needs the spearmen anymore because of how quickly they're going to die to the Zugnu anyway. Second ram going to double that DPS of the Barbican, and the Barbican at about 40% health right now. It's going to go down pretty quickly. Avely is massing with how many stables he has. The IO's supervising, meaning the horsemen come out in 9 seconds, which is absolutely bonkers. But I think the amount of men-at-arms that are here might help take down these horsemen. Now it looks like they're going to get a good encircle on those rams. Rams being rather tanky than you might think, and they do get the last hit, taking down the Barbican. That's 1 landmark out of 3, which isn't the most important part of this information just because of these landmarks being all the way in the back, but this defensive structure that was helping him in this area is now gone. Early men-at-arms can keep tanking those Zugnu shots. Got to be careful though when you're fighting against horsemen. Make sure these men-at-arms don't get too far away from these archers. Don't want to get a wraparound and then get encircled. But now with only 1 ram here, this town center targeting the men-at-arms, which is not doing as much damage at all. Another IO's coming down, getting killed as soon as they walk out of the academy. And this production, being that Baltune is right in front of the production, is going to be difficult to mass anything. Horsemen getting picked off in the process. They do not... Oh, they just got the ranged armor upgrade. Excuse me, I thought they did not. And now these men-at-arms are going to be able to take down all of these stables and the things that Avely took so much wood to build. Now you got to be thinking as far as trying to mass up some military again. How is he going to do it with these stables going down? And that's why when you're taking an aggressive stance in a game, getting into their production, taking down their production, delaying the amount of time that they have to mass up units is huge. And that's what Baltune is doing, taking down these stables, took down an archery range. Also in the process, says F you to that lumber camp, it looks like. And it looks like back home, Avely going for a static defensive strategy rather than a mobile one. Going for 5 different outposts back here. If he gets enough to get hand cannon slits, that could be very good to take down these men-at-arms because the horsemen and the Zuganu just are not going to do it for you. All of these villagers in the south started their mass migration to the north, going for this berry patch in Narnia. And there are a couple units here that will alert the attention of Avely and start to back them up. And those villagers, just because of how risky it was to go up that far, as good as dead. Military count 82 to 69. Nice. Baltune with the King's Palace just going up, and look how much food he has because of all these farms. Look at all these farms. How many villagers? 42 on food right now. Food per minute, about 1,500. That's insane. How good those English farms are. Now 2 battering rams for Baltune. It looks like Avely's trying to get up to Castle Age. Got a market, used his gold, went up with the astronomical clock tower. The issue is, if Baltune continues to keep pushing, he's now got Castle Age men-at-arms. And I want to see in the barracks. Oh, sweet God. All of these villagers. Oh, no. I know he's got 64 villagers, but there was, I don't know. This looks like about 20 villagers right here. 23. Now Avely going up to Castle Age, probably a little too late though. It's another landmark to essentially ram down for Baltune, the Imperial Academy going down. And that town center will be next. Clock Tower trying to pump out a nest of bees, as that is probably your only defense against all of these longbowmen. On the backside, the ironclad armor coming in. And veteran spearmen coming in as well. Those iron, I like to call it Iron Chad, that Iron Chad armor going to work wonders for him, making sure, if you make sure these hand cannon slit towers, well, they're not even hand cannon slits, they're just idle towers. They don't have anything on them. So they're not going to be much good in a fight. The men-at-arms are going to be super tanky against these horsemen. Nest of Bees trying to get some hits off, not against the longbowmen, but against the men-at-arms. Men-at-arms will easily clear up these feudal age Zugnu. And now these men-at-arms can make short work of that nest of bees, knowing that there's no front line anymore. Longbowmen in the back are going to be able to just sit and pick off these villagers over and over again. And with all this idle time, 33 idles, 47 idles out of 48. That's the only worker that's working. Now she's not working anymore, and this game will go to Baltune, taking the 2-0 victory. As I can change that score. Boom. 2-0 in favor of Baltune. This was pretty good for feudal aggression against a China player. With the English being able to get that second town center was obviously nice, as we saw the villager count. Avely never got to that endpoint, game-breaking Song Dynasty kind of villager count that we expect to see. Maybe a little bit of that was because the second town center was late. He didn't make the decision to do the second town center until a little bit later. And not a lot of military, as you can see here. Worried about getting up to Song Dynasty and then maybe some second town center stuff. Didn't quite get there, as Baltune had that initial idea of just keep pushing with aggression. And although I said initially in the beginning, if you survive the first 35 minutes, you end up winning the game, this is a rather different approach, but also a viable one, which makes English somewhat difficult to try to play against sometimes, because you feel like you're on a clock. If you're on that post-imperial clock, you know if you get there, you're going to lose. Sometimes you're so focused on that, you have something like some English feudal aggression hit you in the mouth. Excellent series by both players.
We want to thank our MetaPlays website subscribers. Your contribution helps us keep the project sustainable. As we reach higher subscription goals, you are helping us cover more and more behind-the-scenes costs, such as video editing. Check out our subscription page using the link in the description, and remember to collect your perks. We will see you the next time.